And some of those areas include communication and intimacy. As I said before, communication is kind of key when it comes to couples. So lacking that communication is not going to help the situation at all if you are, especially if you're dealing with infidelity. And then it starts to affect intimacy too, because if you're not communicating with one another, you're going to probably have a hard time connecting with one another on that deeper level. So this is why today we are here to talk about the 6 steps to rebuild trust after infidelity. So these 6 steps are going to be used with the acronym ATTUNE. So through ATTUNE, the A stands for awareness, the T stands for turning towards, the third T stands for tolerance, the U stands for understanding, N stands for non-defensive responding, and E stands for empathy. So we'll go through each one of those steps. And I do want to encourage you all to participate as we go through this webinar. It's just going to help you learn more, and it's going to also help you stay engaged as we go throughout the slides. All right, so step 1 is awareness. It's very important to have awareness, to be aware of yourself, to be aware of what's going on in your relationship. You also need to be aware of like what your strengths are, what your areas of improvement are, what it is that you stand on, what it is that motivates you, and also kind of translating that into your relationship. What is your relationship standard? What's the relationship? What's your foundation in your relationship? What are the areas that need to be improved in your relationship? So awareness is the first step. You can't really solve anything or fix a problem or come to a solution unless you are aware of what's going on first. And I highly encourage you all to be aware of what areas you need to improve on, but also be aware in your relationship, what areas are your strengths. So I want you all to type in the chat right now, what area do you feel like you can improve on with yourself and your relationship? So in the chat, let me know if you feel like you know what area you feel you can probably use some more improvement on. Vulnerability, communication. So we got a lot of communication, vulnerability, and those, I feel like those two kind of connect. When you're able to communicate on a good level, healthy level, you're going to be able to be vulnerable as well. Letting go of the past, attitude, having accountability. And we'll talk a little bit about that later too. Resentment. Okay, good. So it sounds like you guys do have some self-awareness of what's going on in your relationship and some areas where you can probably improve on. So step number 2 is to turn toward your partner. A lot of times in relationships, we get into this place where when we stop communicating with each other, we start avoiding one another, or we start criticizing or becoming defensive against one another. But I want to challenge you all to move towards turning toward one another. So start to acknowledge those opportunities that you can build that connection or make a connection with one another. For example, if one partner is coming home from work and they're telling you that they had a bad day or something happened at work, a way to turn toward your partner is to engage with their partner and let them know that you're listening, and also let them know that you want to know about that day. So asking like open-ended questions like, what happened? Can you tell me more about that? And just showing interest in your partner. Turning away or turning against your partner would be kind of just brushing your partner off, or just kind of telling your partner, well, you didn't listen to me when I was trying to tell you about my day. And then the focus is just off of your partner and them sitting with their feelings about what happened to them at work that day. So in both of those examples, I want you to try to refrain from telling your partner, redirecting the statement and redirecting it to yourself, but have that attention be on your partner for a while. If your partner is presenting to you what they experience in their day, let their partner have that attention for that moment. I know a lot of times we get into the habit of throwing something else in our partner's face when they're bringing something else to our attention, but that's not going to get anybody's problem solved. Neither one of you are going to feel heard. So it's very helpful to just kind of take a second to just give each other that space and opportunity to speak. And also just engaging with one another and being open to listening to each other. And trying to go, okay, here we go. So step number 3 is tolerance. So here you want to be able to acknowledge that you two have different viewpoints. Both of you have different perspectives of seeing things. You're not always going to agree on things. Each of you come from different backgrounds. You have different lives. So of course you're going to come to the table with different viewpoints and how you see situations or experience different things. And the idea here is just to be open to viewing your partner's point of view. I know a lot of times when we're communicating with each other, our goal sometimes is to get our partner to agree with us or to get our partner to side with us. But the most important thing is just really to just get your point across to your partner and get your partner to understand. So an example could be if one partner is very cold nature, they might not want to go to the skating ring. If they feel like the skating ring is too cold, they might come to you and say, I just feel like it's cold. I'm a cold natured person. I don't want to go there. You don't have to necessarily agree with your partner. For you, it could be that the skating ring is not too cold, it's tolerable. But only thing in that conversation that's important is for you to understand where your partner's coming from and just to sympathize with them and say, okay, I understand that you're saying that it's too cold for you when we go there. And that's really the point of communication, is just to understand where the other person is coming from and just to realize where their viewpoint is. And also just coming to understanding that it's not you against each other. You two are on the same team. You two are working together. You two are not competing against one another. It's not one person is right, the other person is wrong. It's not one person wins, the other person loses, but it's rather you both are acting and moving as a unit. And that's kind of what attune stands for within itself. It's about becoming harmonious. It's about becoming one, and also about becoming aware of each other. So I want you all to type in the chat. If you feel like it's team us, put team us in the chat. If you feel like it's us against the other one, let me know where you are right now in your relationship. Let me know in the chat box. So if you guys are feeling like it is you against everyone else, or if you feel like it's really you guys against each other. And someone said it depends on the day and the mood. And that's what we're aiming to get to tonight, is for it to shift from being one-sided and for it to start become more harmonious and for you guys to work well with one another. And for this also to be a decision, it's going to have to be a decision that you make every day. There are going to be some tough times, but even in those tough times, you still have to make that decision for it to be team us. And it can get a little bit complicated when you start to bring like the kids involved, because they're also in the household too. But it's important to also have them on the team as well and not dividing sides in the house. Okay. And I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry, y'all, my PowerPoint is moving a little slow, but okay, here we go. So step number 4 in attune is for the you, and it's for understanding. I just saw a Facebook post recently about how we always say communication is key in relationships, but a lot of people are starting to think that it's comprehension. It's being able to comprehend one another and understand where one another is coming from. And I agree with that. I think that's also a very important step to have when you are having communication with your partner. I feel like this clears up a lot of disagreements. It clears up a lot of conflicts when you're able to say at the end of the day that you understood your partner, because it helps make your partner feel like they were able to get their point across. And again, the idea here is not to be able to agree with one another. It's really just to be able to say, okay, I can see where you're coming from. I can see your point of view or what stands you're taking in this area. Um, in communication and conflict, it can start spiraling out of control when it usually starts to go left when each person doesn't feel like they're heard, when each person feels like their partner has not listened to anything that they said. And I want to challenge you all again to even go further than just listening to your partner, but to communicate to your partner that you heard them and that you understood them. So if your partner is talking to you about their day and they're telling you, they got into it with their boss, they got into an argument with the customer, try to reflect back to them and say, I understand that you had a tough day today and a lot of different things happened to you. That's going to help you both kind of engage with one another and connect with one another. And just having that understanding is going to also help you guys connect on a deeper level and increase the intimacy with each of you. Right. So step number 5 is the N in attune, and this is for non-defensive responding. So a lot of times in infidelity, it's hard to sit back and have those conversations about what happened. The other person that felt like they were done wrong usually might start those conversations off criticizing the other person or somehow attacking the other person with their words. And then the other partner usually responds with defensive responding. They're not really listening anymore. They're just trying to defend themselves from the attacks that they feel like they are undergoing in that moment. But I think that in this area or this topic is going to take effort and work on both parties. So the person that's initiating this conversation has to go into this conversation. It's helpful to use I statements. So probably saying, I feel sad that you cheated on me, or I feel upset that you went behind my back and betrayed me. And to start conversations off like that, rather than saying, you messed up, this is all your fault, you ruined this whole relationship, and try to refrain from saying you, and letting your partner know how you are experiencing this and how you are feeling with using an I statement rather than putting it on your partner. Because for anybody that feels like they're being attacked, instantly their brain is going to tell them to go in defense mode. So we want to start to stray away from that. We want the respondent to be very open and engaging. It just kind of goes back to the first T in attune, which is turning toward. That means being open to hearing your partner out. That means engaging in what your partner is trying to share with you. And that means just kind of sitting with them and what they're experiencing at that point in time. Again, the idea here is not to necessarily agree. I think it's great if you guys are able to reach an agreement and to agree with one another. But the idea here is to just be able to understand where your partner is coming from. And also with that understanding, it comes with just knowing the background or the history behind why this is affecting your partner the way that it is. And the last step is step number 6, and that is for the E in attune, and that's for empathy. Empathy just means having that compassion and just being able to connect and listen to your partner's feelings. I had a couple this week that was able to really use empathy in an amazing way with one another. They were able to normalize how their partner was feeling. And it helped them both be able to be more comfortable being vulnerable with one another. So if you are feeling like you're having these thoughts, but you're afraid to share with your partner because they might judge you, I want to challenge you to Go to your partner and let your partner know those thoughts, and for your partner to respond with trying to normalize what your partner might be feeling. So if your partner comes to you and say, I've been feeling like you were gonna leave me, that you didn't want to be with me, that you were looking at other people and you wanted to be with them. Um, I want you guys to refrain from trying to say, trying to flip it back on the partner or trying to become defensive, but to say something along the lines of, I understand how you feel. I felt that way before. I can see how you might start feeling like that based off the actions that I might have been showing you. But just having that empathy and sitting with your partner and what they might be experiencing in that point of time. So within all these steps, I'll go over them one more time. The first one was awareness. So having that awareness of yourself, having that awareness in your relationship, and knowing what areas need work on, what areas need to be improved, and what areas are also your strengths. And the idea here is to be able to acknowledge what areas you're kind of strong in and use what's working in those areas to help those areas that you might be weak in or those areas you might need improvement in. The T is for turning towards. So anytime there's a bid for connection, your partner has done something special for you, acknowledge that. If your partner was able to cook dinner or laid out a picnic for you or was able to do breakfast in bed for you, acknowledge that your partner did that and show gratitude and appreciation towards your partner for doing so. Um, and also just being able to engage with your partner. So if your partner is telling you that something happened or they want to express something to you, be open to listening to your partner and not flipping it on them or trying to put that attention on yourself. Sit with your partner how they feel it in that moment as well too. The next one is tolerance. So being able to accept influence from your partner, being able to be open to seeing that things will not always look the way that you see them, that there's another different perspective of how to view things or how another person might be experiencing things. And that's something to be celebrated. That's something to be excited about in your relationship, because I think that's what helps keep relationships fresh and keeps them going, because you two are not the same. You two are supposed to work on the same team and be united with one another, but you two have different views. You two have different viewpoints. You have different perspectives. And it's just important to be able to communicate those different perspectives with one another. Just so that you can also see how it's possible to look at this from a different point of view. It might also help you learn something new that day if you are able to accept some influence from your partner. And then we have the U for understanding. And for me, that just means comprehending. Are you able to comprehend what I'm saying to you? Again, not necessarily agreeing, but able to see that I'm coming and I'm talking from this perspective. I'm experiencing this way. Can you understand where I'm coming from? And also, can you both understand one another, not just so that it's one-sided. It really does help if you two are able to move at the same pace with one another doing this, but it's not always a perfect work. So there might be one person who's kind of implementing this and the other person's not quite there yet. But you two should just still keep trying to put in that effort, because if that other person is willing to make this relationship work, they'll soon enough start to catch on and start doing the same things that they see that you do. And then we have the N for non-defensive responding. So just being able to not get defensive when your partner is trying to explain something, how they're feeling. We tend to let things go over our head when our partner is probably being vulnerable with us in that moment. But because they might have said something that felt like it was attacking our character, we become defensive instead of handling and talking about the issue at hand. So I want you guys to more so focus on the situation and not so much of focusing on trying to prove your point or make something valid, but try to work out the actual problem. We have a tendency also of making it seem like it's the person rather than the problem. We're not trying to fix a person. We're not trying to necessarily attack the person. We're trying to team up together and figure out a solution to the problem. And then the last one is empathy. Being able to normalize how your partner is feeling, being able to sit with how your partner is feeling, being able to say to your partner, I can understand why you feel that way because I felt that way too. And that takes some vulnerability. It takes some vulnerability for your partner to first be able to share something they might feel embarrassed about or something they might feel like they might be judged on. But it also takes vulnerability on the other person's part to say, hey, I've also had those feelings, instead of getting angry with their partner, instead of throwing it back in that partner's face, instead of bringing it up later, but just sitting with them in that moment and saying, you know what, I can think of a time when I also had that thought or that feeling as well too. So after going through all those 6 steps of Attune, which one do you guys feel that you are doing well in, and which one do you feel like you need to improve in? So I want you guys to type in the chat, which one of these steps do you feel like you are pretty good in with your relationship, and which one of these steps do you feel like you need some work in? And I'll give y'all a few minutes to go to the chat. Okay, so we got some looking for some improvement in empathy and understanding. And having those two alone can probably take you a long way when handling conflict or when issues arise. Just being able to have empathy and sit with your partner and also understand your partner is going to clear up a lot of conflict and confusion and also prevent them from occurring as much. So we got some people that's looking for improvement in all areas. And that's good. Just being honest with that, just knowing that all of these areas are some what you probably need to work in. Learning how to control my mouth. So that comes with like the defensive, non-defensive responding, being able to understand, and to also being able to work as a team. So you not to feel like you're being attacked by your partner, but just to sit with your partner and how they might be trying to communicate with you. Okay. Got good at awareness, needs to put on turning towards and non-defensive responding. And turning towards will also help with a lot of conflicts around issues. So if you're having communications about any issues that are coming up, turning towards one another is going to help you successfully have that conversation. I don't know if you guys have heard of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, but it's basically 4 ways that's going to end your relationship if you are not kind of turning toward one another. And that's criticism, stonewalling, and I think the other one is, I can't remember the other 2, but those are all just different types of ways, if you're not turning towards one another, that they're going to lead to your relationship coming to an end. Being able to listen without being angry. That's good. And empathy and non-defensive responding. And it's important to also know that these 6 steps can be used to rebuild and to repair. They also can be used to prevent these type of things from happening. So to prevent things from getting out of hand, to prevent so many arguments, to help you guys reconnect more. And thank you so much. I had somebody put in the 4 different ways. So we have criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. But yes, being able to use these steps kind of to prevent things from going bad, and also just to want these steps into your relationship, just to create a new norm in your relationship where you just practice these things just to make sure that the relationship stays healthy, is also another way to look at it. So maybe you're not dealing with trying to rebuild trust, maybe you're not trying to restore what might have been lost, but maybe you're just trying to keep the relationship in a good place and make sure that y'all implement good habits. These 6 steps are a good way to be able to maintain that. All right, so I wanted to open it up for you guys now to ask any questions you might have about these 6 steps. If you feel like there was an area that you're not sure about how to implement in your relationship, if there's one that you need more clarity on, anything that you guys feel like you need to ask right now, I want to open the floor to you all to be able to ask your questions. So you can type them in the chat, or you can also unmute yourselves and ask them aloud. And I'll give y'all a few more minutes. Have one question. How do you deal with a situation where your spouse has basically said they don't feel they need to apologize even when they know they're wrong because of what you've done in the past? It's causing a lot of resentment. So I want to clarify with your question. Are you saying that you've done something in the past and now your partner has recently done something, but they don't want to apologize for it because of what you did before? Okay. So I think the first thing is to probably take it back to acknowledging what happened before. So for you two to sit down and talk about whatever occurred in the beginning, whatever might have caused your partner to be hurt, to talk about that first, because it sounds like that's probably what's driving their behavior and why they might be finding ways to try to hurt you because of the pain that they still currently feel within them. I believe that when you guys are able to talk about that, they'll probably be able to stop doing that behavior and also issue you out an apology. But I think it's going to be helpful for you two to sit down and talk about what occurred in the beginning first, and then start to talk about what has recently occurred. Yeah, no problem. We have another one. How do you deal with name calling? With name calling, I think that's a conversation for you and your partner to have to set boundaries and expectations in your relationships. So if you feel like name calling is one thing that should be set on your boundaries list, that's something that you two need to come to an agreement about. And that's also something that you two need to hold each other accountable to. So if you guys sit down tonight and set that boundary of not name calling to one another, then that's something that you two have to respect. Because I think with name calling, it's a standard that we typically have in relationships, and it also goes along with respect. And if there's no respect in a relationship, it's definitely going to turn out bad for you, or it's possibly going to end. So I would say sit down with your partner and figure out how, if y'all want to set that boundary together to stop name calling, if you guys do set that boundary, hold yourselves accountable to it. And I think with name calling, it really is just a way of just trying to attack your partner, or if you're dealing with some type of anger that's going on in that moment. So just, I think also just kind of trying to redirect your anger too would help. I have another question. I cheated and she did too, but my wrongdoings justifies hers. How to explain without judging to let her know it's okay to talk about it. So are you saying that she doesn't want to talk about it because you cheated as well? In that question, it sounds like you two do need to deal with the hurt that you two might be experiencing, and trying to talk about and discuss what you two are feeling, what you two are going through in that with the cheating. And it sounds like you two might feel like two wrongs are making it right. And we all know that's not the case. So if one person does wrong, it's not going to help anything to go back and do wrong too. It's not going to, it's only going to hurt your partner. And then I think in turn, just hurt your relationship more. But if you two can start to try to and make an agreement to say that we're going to let go of the past, we're going to start fresh today, and we're going to move forward from what happened. And it might be helpful to talk about what happened, why it happened, and how can we prevent this from happening again. And I think it's going to be helpful for you two to work with each other, to get on a team with each other instead of moving against one another. So if one person does something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go back out and hurt that person, but to turn toward one another and talk about it.
That is an excellent point that you made, Shelly. Any other questions in the chat?
I think I have one more. How do you admit and accept when you're wrong? I always love to be right.
I think I would say just being willing to see things from your partner's point of view and empathy. That's the main thing, because empathy is stepping out of your shoes and stepping into your partner's shoes. And when you really care about someone, it's difficult to see them hurting, in pain. Anything else you would add, Shelly?
I think just not looking at it from a wrong or right perspective and kind of taking accountability and just saying, if you can admit that you at least hurt your partner's feelings, not necessarily saying that you were wrong, not saying necessarily saying that you're right, but if you've done something to kind of offend your partner, just taking that accountability and just saying, I admit that I kind of crossed a boundary with you and I apologize for that, without kind of looking at it from a right or wrong perspective.
All right, guys, what other questions do you have? Trying to heal the wounds that are fresh. You got into an emotional relationship and all lies keep coming. Trying to heal from the wounds that are fresh. Yeah, I think counseling can make a huge difference, in dealing with wounds that are fresh, because a lot of times when there is infidelity, you experience anxiety, you experience stress, worry, like, is this going to happen again? Also, you might experience hypervigilance of like, oh, checking the phone, checking the bank statement, all of those things. And so getting into counseling can help you develop coping skills. What do you think, Shelly?
I agree. I think there's going to have to be some talk around those lies stopping so that you can start the healing and it's not continuing to build up. I think that's the first step, to start to be honest with one another, so that you both can start your healing process and rebuild trust in your relationship.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Excellent point there. All right, guys. So anybody else have any questions? What other questions do you guys have?
I think there's one from Jennifer. Um, she said, he's cheated several times and I'm really at my wits' end because I'm not understanding why he's continuing with his behavior.
Sometimes there are many different reasons why people cheat. One reason is sometimes it can be them dealing with attachment wounds, like things that have happened in their childhood that sometimes can create an insatiable need for validation. There's also, it could be things that have happened that have created a disconnection in the relationship, or sometimes there are communication issues that cause those barriers. But the key is getting to the root of it, right? Infidelity is just like the tip of the iceberg, but typically there's something else that is underneath the iceberg that you'll definitely want to get to. And I think that's one of the benefits of the After I Do Academy, because we have additional trainings in the portal on how to rebuild trust.
I agree. And we have one more. It's hard for me to let go of the past. I bring it up with every argument and I always throw stuff in his face.
What do you think about that, Shelly?
Um, I think just sitting down with your partner and letting them know how you actually feel. Um, it sounds like there's still some anger for you, some resentment that might still be built up, and just sitting out and trying to figure out how to get all of that out and convey that to your partner. Because I think it's still going to keep coming up. You might find that you're getting triggered. And I think it's helpful to also be aware of your triggers so that you can find ways to redirect yourself when you see them come up. Um, and once you are able to talk about it, try to refrain from throwing it back up again. I think that's going to lead to your partner feeling more defensive and then them feeling like their process and trying to correct things is for nothing. But just trying to get to a place where you feel like you are able to heal and ask your partner too. If you feel like there's some things you need from your partner, if your partner can help you in that process.
Yeah, I think a lot of times, just in my experience of working with couples, sometimes people don't necessarily ask for what they want or what they need. Sometimes it can just be a feeling of assuming that their spouse will know like what they want and what they need without having to ask for it. But you know, our spouses are not mind readers, so your partner doesn't know what you want if you don't say it. And sometimes part of saying it is saying, you know, I get triggered when this happens. Like when I call and you don't answer the phone, it makes me anxious. And I would feel reassured if you were to do XYZ, if you were to answer the phone or call me back as soon as you know, see my missed call, or, you know, share with your spouse what makes you feel like reassured and validated in the relationship. Those sort of things help, but you want to start with first identifying what are your triggers. What other questions do you guys have? Let's see. What was the last question, Shelly?
The next one is even if the event happened a few years ago, sometimes insecurity or reminders happen that bring on the old feelings of resentment. How do you deal with that?
Let me make sure I see it. Is that the last question?
I think there is some more under it. This was just the next one that I saw.
How do you deal with when your partner doesn't trust you based on his or her own? Is that the one?
That's the one after it. This one is even if the event happened a few years ago, sometimes insecurity or reminders happen that bring on the old feelings of resentment. How do you deal with that? I think that that's very normal that those feelings do continue to come up because of the situation that happened. But I think it's helpful when those feelings do come up to turn toward each other and let each other know by saying, today I feel like that feeling of what happened in the past is bothering me today. And communicating that with your partner and your partner also responding with, okay, I understand and I can empathize with how you're feeling about that. What can we do to fix that? What can we do to make it better?
Mm-hmm. And know that there are going to always be reminders. Like that's just part of the healing process, that there are going to be triggers. There's certain common triggers like unaccounted for time, or um anything that reminds you of the situation. Like say for example, if your spouse cheated by traveling like for work, that's usually when the infidelity happened. Then when it's time for them to travel, that's going to be a trigger. Or say for example, part of covering up the affair relationship was working late, and then they say, okay, I need to work late, then that's going to be a trigger. It's certain things that are common, and so you want to think about like what is happening for me? Like, what just set me off? I was fine, I was okay, I was calm, and then now all of a sudden I'm feeling anxious. My heart starts to race. When did it happen? What triggered it for me? So I think the more you are in tune with your own body, like your own like physiological reactions, whether it's racing thoughts or your heart beating fast, like that's going to help you with being able to deal with the triggers. But just know that that's a part of it. Like that's a part of the healing process. Is you're watching a movie and the theme of the movie is infidelity, and now this rush of emotions comes up and you might have felt like, oh, I'm over this, I thought I had moved on from it, but then something happens. And so you want to definitely get into working with someone who is a specialist in this area, because they can help you identify what's the resentment, what's the core root of it. And then also practicing coping skills like prayer, meditation, all of those things help recenter you. There are certain guided meditations that help recenter you when you feel anxious, but the key is practicing coping skills and identifying the triggers. Let's go to the next question.
The next one is I found out my spouse cheated on me last year while pregnant. So since we were being honest, I told him about my infidelity more than 10 years ago. I was tired of carrying the baggage, and now he feels like I'm not entitled to feel how I feel because we both cheated. Any advice?
Um, it's very I see it often that one person has an affair and then another person has an affair in reaction to their spouse's affair. Sometimes that's because when the affair happens, it may be feelings of sadness, depression, self-doubt, not feeling sure of yourself, and then it opens you up to the affair taking place. And then sometimes I see that a person has an affair as a way of kind of getting back at their spouse. But nevertheless, either situation, I think it's important to take responsibility, take ownership of it. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I know this has had a huge impact on your ability to trust me. I'm willing to do the work, really acknowledging it, and taking responsibility. That's the first step.
I think we have two more questions. This one says, my spouse thinks that I'm going to leave regardless of how much I reassure her that I'm in our marriage until the end.
You might ask your spouse, well, why do they feel like you're gonna leave? Like what makes them feel that way? And you might also ask them, what can I do to reassure you? Because I know this conversation has come up a few times, and I'm doing everything that I know to do to affirm you that I'm not going anywhere, but maybe it's something else that I'm missing. So what can I do to help demonstrate to you that I'm committed to this marriage? Those are some things that I would consider. What about for you, Shelly?
I agree with those things. And also just asking your partner what's going to help them reassure them. I know you might have come up with some ways to reassure your partner, but they might be looking for other ways they might not have communicated to you yet. And just checking in with her to see, well, what ways is going to communicate to you that I am here to the end? What can I do to show you that that's going to register to you so that you know by my actions that I'm showing you that I'm going to be here?
Mm-hmm. That's key because it helps move it away from like an insight oriented conversation to more behavioral things that you can actually do, things that you can actually put into place. Okay, someone says, what if your spouse cheated and bring experience home being together since childhood? Regina, can you unmute yourself? I'm not sure what the question is. What if your spouse cheated and bring experience home, been together since childhood? Um, okay, either if you can unmute yourself or either just rephrase the question. I want to make sure we can get the question right. Can you rephrase it or unmute? Okay, we'll go to the next question um until she's back. How do you deal with when your partner don't trust you based on his own idea of a hypothetical situation that haven't happened yet? I think this is something that may be better dealt with in the After I Do Academy, because we can provide more one-on-one direct guidance there. It's a lot of things that are that we would need to know to properly guide you on this question. Like, what kind of hypothetical question? Was there trust issues previously? And has there been a history of infidelity prior to this relationship that they've dealt with? All of those things are going to have an impact on the triggers. So what I want to do next is I want to share with you guys how we can work together deeply. And if there's more additional questions, we'll open it up for that. So you have three choices. Three choices. One choice is you can take action on the things you learned today. What were some of you guys' takeaways? I know Shelly did an amazing job. What were some of you guys' takeaways? Write down in the comments what were some of your takeaways. Also, make sure you check out the Facebook group Black Marriage Matters. Check out the Facebook group. All right, let's go to, all right. We can go forward, Shelly. Who's controlling the size? Is it you?
Yes, it just takes a second for
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
All right. So one option, and guys, make sure you write down in the comments what are your takeaways today. Because we answered a lot of questions that I think can apply to many people other than just the person that asked the question. Because a lot of these questions are things that other people can relate to as well. All right. So one option is you can take action. Take action on what you learned, right? And we want to see you guys do that. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of times people don't do anything. Oftentimes, you need support, you need accountability, you need someone to hold your hand through the process. So, how many of you know that there is somebody else that you know in your life that should have been here today during this webinar? How many of you know somebody, like maybe your spouse, that you're like, oh, I wish my spouse was here to listen to this, right? And then sometimes you need to hear information more than one time. Like, you're listening to it today, but you might need to re-listen to this video again, just for it to sink in. And so that's where the After I Do Academy comes in. So I want to ask you guys, do we have your permission to share with you how we can work together? How we can support you in your relationship goals? Okay. Someone says, great job, Shelly. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So who is the After I Do Academy for? Can someone on the team post the link for the After I Do Academy? Because I know it's some people that right away is like, sign me up. I need support. I don't want to do this by myself. Like, how can I get connected? So we've posted the link inside of the chat. Can you go back? All right. So who is this for? This academy is for couples who are ready to move to the next step in their relationship. So you can go to afteridoacademy.com. This is for couples who want to communicate better. Maybe you're tired of fussing and fighting, you're sleeping in separate bedrooms, you miss the intimacy that you used to have in your relationship, and you want to know how can you not only survive, but how can you thrive? And as a couples therapist, I've been doing couples therapy for over 15 years. I know that couples can rebuild trust after betrayal, but it takes time and it takes work, and you have to know the exact type of work to do, because otherwise you'll find yourself trying to start the conversation, and before you know it, you're in a full-blown fight, argument, and you're like, wow, how did we even get here? Thank you so much, Anya, for sharing your takeaways. Please, guys, also continue to share your takeaways in the chat. Now, who's this not for? The After I Do Academy is not for everybody. It's not for couples who do not want to make a change in their relationship. It's not for couples who feel like, hey, we don't need help. We're good. Some people want to stay stuck. They're like, I'm not changing. I'm not changing at all. It's not for couples who are not committed to their relationship, because when we work together in the After I Do Academy, it's like you become part of the family. And so we are invested in making sure that we provide you with the type of support for your relationship to grow and flourish. And we want to see you do that. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Now, what does it include? The After I Do Academy includes 10 hours of training, over 10 hours of training on communication, intimacy, rebuilding trust. I wrote a book, Marital Peace, and I found that there's certain things that lead to divorce. There's certain things that couples do that they don't even necessarily know that they're doing, but that put their relationship in jeopardy for divorce. And so this has been done from like research for over years of working with couples. And so I said, well, I'm not going to just kick the ladder down behind me, but I want to provide a roadmap for you. And so that's what you're going to get in the After I Do Academy. Shelly has done a number of interviews with experts from all over the country. Shelly, can you talk a little bit about some of the expert interviews that you've done?
Yes, they've all brought their different perspectives in on the type of work that they do. Some of the interviews are about communication and really mapping out how exactly you need to communicate with your spouse or partner. Some of it is about addressing like some childhood issues that might be coming up in your current relationship. A lot of them have a lot of resources like books or worksheets that they do to help couples kind of work through any type of issues that they're going through. And we also have a couple that is up there actually talking about their personal experience of going through and trying to figure out how to get in alignment with one another. They were both very honest. The wife mentioned where areas she had to change and how she noticed that how she came off to her partner was rude and disrespectful. And she was able to kind of take in her partner's feedback and kind of adjust herself a little bit without losing herself. So there's a lot of great resources in those interviews, a lot of great examples of how to actually work through these things in your actual relationship. They really do go in depth and give you real life examples of their own experience of how to be successful in your own relationship.
Absolutely. Like, I know that for a lot of couples, you can get to a place where your relationship starts to go stagnant. Shelly, you can go to the next slide. And when your relationship starts to go stagnant, you can start to feel like, man, are we stuck here? Like, will it ever be different? Like, this person get on my nerves. They just breathe. They just come in the room and I'm like irritated. How many of you guys have ever felt like that before? Like, I remember it was one time when we was just in love and it was passionate. And then somewhere along the lines, we lost that fire. We lost that like connection. And maybe you're feeling like, I want to get it back. Like, I want to find out if it's even possible for us to get back to the loving again. Well, I want to share with you guys that we are offering for this weekend only, we're offering a 3-part intimacy course. Now, this 3-part intimacy course is valued at $97, but because y'all are here, y'all part of the inner circle now, we are waiving the fee completely for the 3-part intimacy course. And what this course is about is really showing you not only how you can have not only how you can have just physical intimacy, but we also talk about emotional intimacy. We talk about because I know a lot of times for women, it's not just about what happens in the bedroom, but it's about what happens outside of the bedroom. Like, how are we talking to each other? Is there some kind of like buildup, or does it just kind of jumping right to that? That can be really, really challenging. And I know a lot of times in my work with men say like, I want to feel desired too. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm initiating all of the time. And so we break those things down, how you can go from intimacy being non-existent to how you can go to that place where there's warmth, there's closeness, and there's that friendship bond back in your relationship. So everybody who signs up for the After I Do Academy today, you will get the 3-part intimacy course valued at $97 for free. Somebody write that in the comments, for free. Someone asked if we have male counselors is probably more comfortable with a male. Yes, we do have a male therapist. And so for now, y'all, this is something I started to take out of the slides. Just for real, I started to take this out of the slides, but we did. So for everybody who signs up for the After I Do Academy today, you will get a complimentary couples therapy session. Yes, we do have a male therapist, so you will get the opportunity to have a complimentary therapy session valued at $175. Now, let me tell you about this. When you have your session, the things that you're going to discover is what you need to start doing, because some of us are just totally off track and we saying things is making it worse and with to our spouse. And so we want to give you that feedback on these are some things that you need to start doing so that we can get over the infidelity, where we can get back to the place where the resentment starts to melt away. We're also going to talk to you about what are some things that you need to stop doing. We're going to tell you what are some things that you need to continue to do, because I know for many of you, we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's some things that you're doing where you are right, like, and it's good for your marriage. And so we'll tell you the things you need to start doing, stop doing, and continue to do so that your relationship can continue to grow. So that's what you'll get out of the complimentary one-time session. So let's go over it. You are going to get the After I Do Academy. Now, the investment for the After I Do Academy is $47. I know we giving it away. This is a complete steal. $47 a month. You can cancel at any time, but why would you? Once you get into the space and you're around other couples that are loving on you, growing your relationship, you have the support and the accountability of couples experts. It's the kind of space that you want to stay a part of. But you can cancel at any time. It's $47 a month for everybody who signs up tonight. You will get a complimentary couples therapy session valued at $175. You'll also get the 3-part intimacy course. We're going to be giving that to the first 10 people that sign up. The first 10 people that sign up, you'll get the 3-part intimacy course. We've just posted the link inside the chat. You can go to afteridoacademy.com. afteridoacademy.com. Next slide. All right, so afteridoacademy.com. All right, guys. Well, we are looking forward to working with you guys. Congratulations to everyone who has signed up. Shout out to Shelly for doing such a phenomenal job. For those of you who are part of our Facebook group, please post in the Facebook group your takeaways. Please post it in the Facebook group, your takeaways, because those are the things that help us decide what sort of training to put on in the future. When we know that, you've gotten value out of the trainings, then we decide to, continue with them. For everybody who joins the After I Do Academy, this particular training will be in the portal. So we'll post this training inside the portal. So if you missed some of it, or you felt like, oh, I need to hear this again, then just know that it's going to be inside of the After I Do Academy portal. All right, what questions do you guys have before we close out? And definitely write down in the chat your takeaways. My personal takeaway is to take more responsibility for my decisions, be better at working on non-defense. Somebody write 1 in the comments if you can agree with her of like, I need to work on not getting defensive. Type of 1 in the comments if you could say, you know what, that's something I want to work on, is not getting defensive. Someone else says everything else will be implemented afterwards on a daily basis until improvement is made. Awesome. Congratulations. I love that you're here. Clap it up for yourself for being here. Y'all could have been anywhere, but you are here working on growing your relationship. Putting myself more in my wife's shoes to fill her plane and help her gain more knowledge. Thank you, ladies. Okay, that's good. I love it. So you know what we call that? We call that empathy. Stepping out of your shoes, stepping into your wife's shoes. So congratulations to you. That is an awesome takeaway. Shelly, any final thoughts as we close out?
No, I think that's everything. I hope that these 6 steps in the attunement is able to help you. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be just to rebuild trust, but if you want to start creating a new norm in your relationship and just start implementing these good, healthy tips and strategies, I highly recommend that you do that. And thank you all for attending and all for your feedback. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to ask questions and get your answers to all those questions tonight.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have an amazing rest of the week. And again, for everyone who signs up for the After I Do Academy tonight, you will get a complimentary therapy session valued at $175, as well as the levels of intimacy course. We are so excited for those of you who have already joined us. We are thrilled to work with you guys. Have an amazing rest of the day, and look out for this training inside the portal. This video training today will be inside the After I Do Academy portal, so you can get it there. All right, good night, guys.
Bye.